what rank they are, but one is providing the best opportunities possible for students, and second is to provide support and opportunities for staff members, and then the third one is the fiduciary responsibility to the district taxpayers. So when you look at those, 1 and 2 would be easy to take care of if funds were unlimited. They're not. I mean, the state doesn't provide us an increase large enough each year to continue improving programs and paying for salaries. So there is a limitation there. So when we look at that, then I reflect, okay, where has WCA been? And there was a time when WCA was struggling financially, and they built a comfortable fund balance. And in the last couple of years since I've been at WCA, I've seen that WCA's had a nearly balance of revenue and expenditures. It's been really close. So with that, and when you have a budget that exceeds $10 million, and if you deficit spend by $200,000, it's a small percentage, but it whittles away at that fund balance. If you have revenue that exceeds by that much, that adds some of your fund balance, but it doesn't make a real change that you can depend on year after year, because funding fluctuates because of enrollment. And our expenditures, sometimes we have expenditures that are unplanned. With all the work that you've done as a board and identified things that need to be taken care of, there get to be cost overruns, and there get to be things that just haven't been anticipated, and that's just what we're faced with. So with that, I'm concerned about where the district might be headed. And even the best years within the state of Minnesota, the legislature can come out with a 2% increase, which doesn't cover those additional program expansions that you have expressed you have an interest in, and it doesn't cover increases in salaries for staff, even a modest increase. So when I see that, and I see what direction the district is going in, and potentially now with a lot of help from the state, I start thinking, okay, how do we do that? How do we address those 3 priorities, and how can we manage that? And I go back to one of the things we discussed early is if we go to one site, we have some real financial efficiencies by going to one site. We modestly projected $600,000. So if we go to one site, we have better opportunities that can be provided for students. There'll be improved spaces and resources for staff, and there'll be efficiency in operations, which allows us to work within the revenue that we've been provided. So as I see that, I start thinking, okay, back in 2013, the district had a building bond referendum. I think it was in the neighborhood of $12 million, and 24% of the voters voted yes. In November, the voters within the district voted 35% in favor of the one site, just short of 35%. Now, the results of 65% don't give you a clear indication that 65% of the people support 2 sites. To me, that means in this election, or in that election in 2020, 35% of the people supported it at that time. Now, 2020 was a really tough year. There weren't any building bond referendums that passed in the state of Minnesota, none. With the operating levy renewals, there were 13 renewals that passed and 1 failed, which is quite uncommon. And of the operating levy increases, 4 passed and 18 failed. That's an 18% passage rate, and typically Minnesota sees in excess of 50% of those operating levies pass. So it was a tough year, and then COVID definitely caused an elevated financial uncertainty. And in the state of Minnesota, we faced the highest voter turnout probably ever, but at least in recent years. So a lot of people went to the polls. So when I see going from 24 to 35, I see that WCA is becoming more receptive to a one-site option. And in my estimation, the next step should be to gather that committee of those people that identified there to help move toward that one site option. I mean, every piece of factual data that's been presented that we know of provides benefit to the district. And I realize there are concerns. You know, undoubtedly there are concerns. My idea is to take that group, representatives from throughout the district, and granted, not everybody might be on board at this time, but I'd like to have people on the committee that see that, okay, but how do we get to a common understanding that one site is a better option? And that's how I see this playing out for us. And the thing that makes it difficult is last summer, we had a board split on this, 4-3. And that makes it hard. But I think under circumstances with the movement that's been made toward one site, I think now's the time for this board to continue moving forward and recognizing that the support needs to be made for one site. Because to go the other direction now, there are gonna be a percentage of people that are they're gonna vote no to everything. And there's no guarantee, so that's my proposal on how we go forward from here.
So what percentage of people vote no would make you feel like that's not what they want? And what they're willing to pay for it?
Yeah. I don't know that there's any guarantee that for you as a board member, you'd be in a position in which you can carry on with the mission and goals that you've established without having a commitment from voters to raise that operating levy. And at $1,500 plus, this district is already in the higher end of operating levies.
1841, wasn't it?
What percentage of the public that said, we want 3 sites and we're willing to pay for it would be enough for you to say, okay, and that's what the public, the boss, ultimately, they're the ones that are on the show. What percent? of
Sorry,
that
I'm
would
having trouble hearing you.
make you feel okay with it?
Well, I don't know if there's a comfort level for me. I mean, I see financially where the district can be headed. And you know, the district can afford, you know, or the voters could support building one referendum for 3 sites. It would cost them more money over the period of time, and then also it would not be a long period of time before the board would be asking for an increase in the operating rate, or we'd be looking at cutting programs. So how do you get the assurance that operating levy is going to be increased in the future? And that increase in that operating levy is gonna cost them more than it costs to improve the structure and go to one site.
So are you saying that we would never have to raise the operating levy if we went to one site?
I am not saying that at all. It depends on where the programs go in the future, how you want to expand, and what state revenue continues to provide. And it also is dictated by enrollment.
So I think, I'm digesting I think the information that you just shared with us, Mr. Hoagie, and one of the things, that I keep mulling over in my head is that we had talked about in December post-vote, and we've put these conversations on hold, haven't talked about this, knowing that at some point we're gonna have this discussion. I feel like, our original discussions back in December were going to be, we've got work to do. Let's really understand why the vote went the way it was. And there's people that expressed even today an interest on being on the committee and truly wanting to work with the school board and work with the district and help find a solution that would be passed. And I'm not sure that openness is going to be there, given we're talking about a recommendation already. And I mean, no, I appreciate your recommendations and I appreciate the insight that you're providing. I'm trying to digest, we went from discussing, getting feedback and input to right back to where we were 6 months ago, and I'm struggling to digest that, I guess, because I think there's different, even just from amongst the board members, I would assume there's different interpretations of the 65-35 yes, no vote, and we haven't had that discussion. So, just a couple of thoughts that came to my mind.
And my response to that is to go back and to revisit everything that we did about, 2 sites versus 1. Not a lot of information's changed. And I really feel that the step that's been made since 2013